Well, hello, lovely listeners, and welcome, viewers. So today's guest, it's not some, deep in the world of debt or council tax or all the other stuff that we're all drawn to because we need our dopamine fix. It is a bit more love and light, but I want you to keep watching, and there is a reason for this. The wonderful Steve Forsyth, who I've had on the podcast before, introduced me to the Orynoco frequency healing. And it's because of that podcast that I am now doing this podcast with the wonderful Malcom Bosher. And if you want to change your life and change your health and just improve everything, keep watching. So, Malcolm Bosher, who was a wonderful man, and by the way, he's in his 70s. Yes, doesn't look like he's in his 70s, does he? Exactly. Keep watching. He brings over 16 years of experience in energy research, conscious technology, and healing. He originally trained and qualified as a surveyor. Very normie, Malcolm. But your path I can't even speak today, transformed following the passing of your beloved wife, which was an event that deepened your exploration into the unseen aspects of life and consciousness. You have also qualified in biogeometry and you've studied various healing modalities which underpin your work at Orynoco. And Orynoco is the healing frequency that I was talking about. You co-founded the company to share accessible, ethical, open source technologies that support balance, vitality, and self-empowerment. And as you say, we are the force for good, and we individually need to be the change we want to see. And yeah, Wayne Dyer is famous for that quote as well, isn't he? Be the change you want to see.
Yeah,
You work in hand in glove with your wonderful partner, Kat, who is a very talented healer and energy worker for most of her life. And so she's a fundamental part of the Orinoco team, which includes two other people, all co-founders of Orinoco. Welcome. I'm dead excited to have you because obviously I have recently taken on the Orinoco pod.
yeah.
And if you could see behind me, in fact, right, I'll tell you what, just do something a little bit different. I'm going to take off my, I hope there's not a big mess behind me, but um, you can't see it.
Yeah, yeah. Just about see it.
Just about see it. Okay,
Yeah,
so you can see. That's part of see that white column there, and there's another one back there, and the chair. So
yeah,
that is part of the Orinoco pod.
yeah,
So, do you know what? I'm going to leave it off for today because we might want to refer to it as we walk through this chat.
yeah.
So
Okay.
that was a long old intro. Welcome, Malcolm.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
And you are in France.
No, no, I'm not in France. It looks like I'm in France. No,
Yes.
it's just a project that we're doing that's going to help support everything a bit more long term. But it's going to basically end up as an experience center where people can just come for a weekend, a few days, whatever they want, just to experience the technology, basically. So,
What
uh,
part of France is that?
so that's in the Dordogne, and it's located on a hill overlooking what you see, which is a town called Exedoy. And that's a very old town, beautiful town. And in fact, I'm kind of on the edge of my seat because I'm slowly, people are coming back to it. So I'm hoping that within a year that there's going to be a lot more people there, a lot more interest. But the location is superb. It's really got fantastic views. This is the view from the front door. Uh,
Amazing. Is it South France? I don't know France.
yeah, yeah. So the door. So as you run down France, it's towards. It's about an hour north of Limoges. So that's roughly where it is.
Okay.
And we will get all the technologies up and running exactly as we did in Ibiza, where we had a wonderful healing. I said, no, that's not the right word. A wonderful rebalancing swimming pool. So we managed to, which is one of the things that actually got me on this track because I started using the swimming pool and I wanted to use it without any chlorine, and that's how I started my investigations. One of my investigations.
Ah, yeah, I'd love to be in a swimming pool without chlorine in it. Makes you stink all day.
Well, yeah. But in fact, you only actually need to put a microdose in as long as you condition the rest of the water, can microdose it with chlorine to bring it up to the required health standards, and then you don't have to put up with all the rest of the stinky
Yeah.
uh, layer that you get when you come out.
Okay,
So,
cool.
so
Well, let's start from the beginning, Malcolm. I
yeah,
love, and the viewers love a bit of a backstory. And so I think, given the fact that you were a quantity surveyor at one point, I think you lived a
well,
fair,
building surveyor, not concise.
sorry, building
No,
surveyor.
building surveyor.
Sorry. Um, that tells me you were probably a bit of a normie at one point or another. So what's your journey been like? Give us a little bit of a backstory and what got you into doing what you're doing now and sort of any pivotal moments that came
Yeah,
up.
sure. No, I mean the main pivotal moment was when my wife was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And I sat by her bedside, and the doctor came in and said, "You've got 3 months to live." And I just went, that's not true. I can't believe it." I had at the time a fantastic business partner, and he just said, "Look, just take the year off and see how you get on." So that started me on a journey of investigating exactly what was going on with my wife and her health, and led me down several part healing modality paths. Um, but and that actually they said that she only had 3 months to live, but in fact she lived for 9 months and died in September of 2009. And by that stage, I'd become very immersed in what was really going on, and behind that, the energy science, the energy medicine that was available at the time. And so I started investigating that. And Tibet,
Was your wife going through the traditional, what we class as
yeah,
traditional? Yeah,
yeah. No, I mean, basically uh, I had to let go of the situation and not try and fix her.
yeah.
But obviously, that means you have to support her and do everything possible in your power to make the journey as comfortable as possible. But um, but yeah, I mean, it's a hard time, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. No, hard time.
I remember, sorry to interrupt you, but in terms of the instant 3 months now, piss off.
Yeah,
Um, my dad who passed in 2006, and actually it's his anniversary today, 19 years.
wow,
Um, he he ended up with lung cancer after fibrosis of the lungs, and the doctor gave him 6 months. And I was like you, I was trying to fix. I was getting him on cottage cheese and flaxseed oil and
yeah,
and
yeah,
all of these alternatives. But at the end of the day, he believed what he believed, and 6 months later, guess what? He
yeah,
passed. And
yeah.
it wasn't cancer that got him; it was a heart attack that got him. But
Okay,
yeah, so you should never. I don't know why doctors say you've got 3 months, 6 months. It's just utter bullshit. A, how do they know? Because everybody's different. And
absolutely.
B, you put that in somebody's head, and they're a ticking time bomb, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But also all of that whole process is a process for yourself because um, what I found was I went through the usual stuff of anger and blaming and they're just telling me crap and all the rest of it. But ultimately, you come out of that understanding that it's all about you and it's not about them. It's actually about how much you can personally let go and come back to a balanced position. Because if you hang on to all that stuff, you're never going to get back to a balanced position. So it was a very, it was a fantastic thing that my wife did. She gave me the opportunity to empower myself. That's actually what she did, even though to other outsiders it may look something completely different.
Mm.
So yeah, and I mean I've had a fantastic time. I mean investigating all this stuff. Um, Considering that one of my jobs when I was a built surveyor was I used to build mobile phone masts, and everybody will go,
Boo!
okay, no, but the point is, life brings you these opportunities. I had to make sure that what we were doing was okay. And
Mm.
that started me investigating frequencies. And actually, for quite a few years, I was absolutely fine with that. was only until I started looking at the biogeometry I realized there was a bit more to what's going on in our environment and with us, that you can't say this doesn't affect you, and you can't say actually this does affect you, because it all depends on how the individual is within themselves and their self-empowerment. Obviously, there's negative factors, but you can deal with those.
So you've brought up biogeometry there, and you've given me a little bit of an insight into that with the Swiss village,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, with Swisscom. And so for those that don't know what biogeometry is, in simple terms, what is it and why is it good?
Basically, biogeometry is telling you that everything that you experience is here in this ether, in this space. Okay. So it comes from Egypt, and it comes from an architectural background. So if you were an architect in Egypt and you had a client, what you would do, first of all, is you'd probably meditate for about 3 months. And then you design their house. If that person, your client, then started living in that house and lived a long and fruitful life, you can take the credit for that. However, if your client got ill, then they would come looking for you, because you should know your trade good enough to make sure that the space you're living in is completely balanced and ready to go for someone to live in for the rest of their life. So biogeometry is all about understanding what your environment is, and how, even by moving a chair from one location to another in a room, or by changing the color of the wall of the paint on the wall, that can also affect you. And it's a very, very scientific, actually, and you can do a lot of studying and investigation. It's fantastic.
So the woo-woo side of that would be feng shui.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that, but feng shui is still has a big place to play,
Mm.
and it's very important, because it's just a kind of a non-scientific version of giving you what biogeometry does. But what biogeometry is a really good introduction into understanding how powerful you can be in your own environment, and
Wow.
how control you can take over it.
So when you and Kat come and visit me, whenever that might be, it'll be interesting because where I've lived here 20 years, and I remember years and years ago, I was at the most alternative dinner party I'd ever been to in my life. There was some interesting characters around that table, but this one woman, I was talking about my house, and I was talking about how close, like, so I'm on the edge of the city by the countryside, and there's like pylons and not far away sort of thing in these fields. And my son has always said he just has this weird feeling about this house. He's always said it.
Ah,
So it would be and she basically said something similar, and she said, "You need to move, you need to move." Well, I never did. So it would be interesting to know what feelings you get and what comes up for you when you visit. We
yeah.
digress. We digress.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is, you've got a set of pods now.
Yeah.
So what's actually going to happen in your house is you're going to be rebalancing your whole environment with those pods,
Well,
not only yourself, but your whole house.
this is a separate lodge in my garden. This isn't in the house,
No, no, it'll spread out.
but it'll spread out. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah, no,
That's
totally.
what I like to hear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it'll be fine. So, but you can test that. There are certain things you can do to test that, and I'll show you how to do that. And in fact, if you want to have it verified by a third party, I can give you a couple of people to check it as well. So don't take my word for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
All right.
Sorry, I interrupted. Carry on.
No, that's all right. Anyway, so yeah, so I started to look at biogeometry, actually, with a view to understanding what was going on with the frequencies. But then I got into, oh, is there any free power? We all go through this thing. We should all have free power. And then I looked at somebody called Kesh, who was a nuclear physicist who was claiming to have developed a reactor that would give you not free power, but reduced power costs in your home. And there was all sorts of controversies on the internet with him, because he'd been working since 2000. And I looked at it, I thought, no, this can't be right. And I looked at it and I binned it, and then I looked at it again, then I binned it, and then I looked at it again and I binned it. And then eventually I was it was nagging at me, and I need to look at it for some reason. So I thought, well, look, I won't take anybody's view on it. I'll just get involved with it, understand it, make whatever it is he's showing, just to see for myself if it works. So Kat and I were we'd been to one of our healing retreats where she teaches in Germany, and her mum is Norwegian. And after that retreat, we went to her mum's cabin, which is on the Norwegian coast, literally perched on the edge of a cliff
Wow.
overlooking the sea in the middle of nowhere. And we had 3 weeks, and it poured with rain every day. So what we did was we got together all of the information that this guy Kesh was bringing forth, because it was all open source. None of it, didn't pay for any of it. You just had to sit down and listen to him, which is actually quite challenging in itself. But you had to sit and listen to it, and then you could take that away and experiment for yourself. Because basically what he was trying to do is to show, well, what he was doing was showing everybody how they can come into their power by taking control of this technology. So 3 weeks went by. We understood. We started to understand it, but it actually takes a lot longer than that, because you have to unlearn everything that you've learned about, not everything, but a lot of what you've been taught, and you have to relearn everything, and you have to start looking at life in a new way. So the new way is, instead of looking at your reality as a solid reality, you've got to start looking at it as a movable, waving energy field for absolutely everything. And it's not just an energy field that just woo-woos around like this. Part of this energy may mix with this part of the energy, which may mix with that part of the energy. And all of that goes together to creating the reality that we live in. The leaves, the trees, the minerals, the rocks, everything. So that took me about 6 months to get my head around a bit. And at that stage, then I made my first, what he was calling GANs, which is gas at a nano state. And what we call in Orynoco, we call it a transition state element, because it's transitioning from the ether, which is this, to a physical thing. And it ends up in a bottle, which you can see there, which you can then put in your water and spray the water. I'll come back to that. So that was in the September. We learned. The following February, I made my first batch of TSE or GANs. And because I was so skeptical of the whole thing, Kesh was teaching at the time, take a bin, put 2 plates in it, put some salt water in it, connect them up in a particular way, and precipitation will occur in the water, and that precipitation you can then use because it's going to be charged. I was so skeptical. I said, right, well, if it really is an energy thing, I'm not going to have any water. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those plates out of that box, wrap it up in a plastic bag, put it on the outside, take the other plate, wrap it up, put it inside the jar. And so therefore, there'd be nothing there other than a tiny bit of water on the bottom, salt water on the bottom. So the only thing flowing between those plates is literally, from our point of view, air. That's all we can see. Now, it took a bit of time, but actually after 6 weeks, some specks started forming in the bottom of that jar. I left it longer, more specks started forming. And then because I didn't have the skill to connect with that or understand if it was energetic, there was somebody living on Ibiza where we were living at the time, who did. And she came in and basically said, that's absolutely fantastic. What you've done is create a little battery, and it's giving off a particular frequency and an energy. And if you sit in proximity to that, then your body will take up the part of that element that it needs in order to repair its energetic body. So basically, so I proved to myself that you didn't need all this water. You can make it in thin air, if you like. And you can make different strains of it or different frequencies of it. And she went on to explain that depending on which metals you use and other changes you make, you can then make a whole range of different substances which speak to different elements of your body, because obviously we're all made up of different layers on different combinations of chemicals, and these frequencies will talk to your compositions and repair them in the ether, basically. So
Wow.
this is all
So,
totally mind blowing.
yeah, so I was just thinking, you said it's what you'd created was like a battery, is what she said. And you've heard we've heard, haven't we, all the scientists and the people that have been out there creating free energy or, creating a device that you can generate
Yeah,
free energy and all the rest of it. And you just proved it in your own garage. Okay, on a small scale, but with at your own admission, it was just a trial. You weren't really sure what you were doing. It was just a bit of a guess. And so if Malcolm in his garage can do that, the possibilities are endless, aren't they, for free energy for the whole world? Except,
everybody
yeah.
everybody who looks at this podcast can send away, can go to the Kesh Foundation, and they can send away for a GANS making kit. Okay, so I've recently sold our V4s, our pods, to some people in Hawaii,
Mm.
and the woman there, she's particularly interested in looking into this herself, and she, within about 2 weeks of having the pods, she bought herself a kit, and she's now got her first batch of TSE made in her box. I've actually got to contact her and find out how she's getting on, actually. But the point is, anybody can make it. The key is having the realization that you can't mass produce this stuff. You can't just stick it in a factory and have it produced, because it comes from the field and it comes from us. And if it comes from us, it's got to be heart based. Because if you go into a process of making this stuff and you're in a bad mood, you're not really going to end up with anything, or you'll just end up with something that's not very nice. So before I quickly learned that, so what I used to do is do a meditation and then just have some nice mantra music playing in the background while I was making this, so that the whole thing was absorbed into the field when you're making it. And of course, that then brings you into the realms of people like Veda Austin, who talk about the consciousness of water, because the whole thing is actually, well, about 99% of it is actually water. And so it's all about providing the right level and frequency to charge these particles and then use the water as the consciousness connection for you.
Yeah,
So,
and ladies and gents, what you can also do, which is something that I did after Malcolm suggested it, is you can put some of those into a paint pot, and
yeah,
you only need a few drops. And so in my lodge, I've got balance on one wall and calm on the other.
yeah.
And Malcolm, can you explain what the benefit of that is?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what this nuclear scientist was doing back in 2000, his one of his jobs was to look after nuclear power stations in England, actually. And he was working out how to make sure the reaction didn't get out of control. He quickly came to realize that it wasn't about controlling the physical proximity of the materials that were interacting. It was all about the field around these. Okay. So if he could keep the balance in the field, then he could keep the reaction in a stable position. And that led him to go on to look at, well, if that's the case, then how can I reproduce what happens in our reality? And the obvious example that he chose was a leaf, which may sound a bit nuts, but actually looking at how a leaf receives sunlight and then transforms it literally into energy, sends it down the plant, and then the plant can shoot up and grow from that, is the most obvious example of that interaction. So he worked that out, and that's how he came up with the method of making the TSE in the tubs. So what he found was that the whole thing is a combination of different balances. So he identified a force that was like a gravitational force, and he identified a force that was like a magnetic force. And when you put those two together, they start working in and out. And that is what starts the whole process of the formation of the particles, or the matter state. Let's put it like that. And then when you understand that, then you understand that a forest is in fact a whole environment of perfectly balanced atoms or particles or matter state particles. And the reason you feel great when you walk through a forest is because you've come out of the supermarket, somebody had scratched your car, you got home, kids are screaming, "Oh, sod all this. I'm just going for a walk." So you throw it all out, you go to the forest, you're feeling bad. What's actually happened in those events is that your energy field has got holes in it. I'm making this very simple. It's got holes in it because you're hanging on to anger or grief or whatever it is. And that hanging on stops the energy in your energy field from flowing nicely. So what you want to do is get back to a position where all the energy is flowing nicely and repairing as you go along. Where's the best place to do that? Well, Einstein said that if you've got a frequency and then you put another frequency of a higher frequency next to it, then one will transmute to the other. You can see that by when you see the ticking of the metronomes. If you get a whole room of metronomes, set them all off differently, eventually they will all come back, so they're ticking together. Okay,
Yeah.
you're the same. So when you go into that forest, you're entering a perfectly balanced field. You enter with imbalances in your energy field. As you walk through the forest, what you're doing is you're harmonizing, picking out what you want from that perfectly balanced field, and you start repairing your energy field. Your body does it automatically. It knows what to do. Okay.
And when we first spoke, or one of the first times we spoke, I told you about a lovely walk I did on Hale Beach in Cornwall with it's very sunny, cold, but very windy. And I just by the end of it, I couldn't get the smile off my face. I was so
Yeah.
energized, and I was in a really bad place at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was like chalk and cheese, and I was just like, wow, it was quite a long walk, but wow, I felt amazing.
Yeah. So that is a really great example because with biogeometry, whenever you've got a junction between land mass and the sea mass, you actually get a very strong energetic point where these energies are talking to each other or trying to rebalance. You were walking straight down the path of that flowing energy moving backwards and forwards, and you were being rebalanced, which is why you came out feeling so well.
Yeah.
And so basically the pods really are a forest bathing without the forest. That's actually what they are. It's the simplest explanation.
And so that sounds amazing, wonderful, and I know that will be resonating for some people. But I know some people are going to be listening or watching, thinking, "Well, okay, if I can go and walk in a forest and feel like this, what do I need the pods for?" But also, you might not live near a forest, obviously. But the other thing is, well, can it do any more than that, Malcolm? I thought this was a
Yeah, yeah.
healing
No, because
frequency.
this is just this is the basis of it, basically. I mean, I'm just explaining how this movement of magnetic and gravitational energy works, because it's absolutely key to understanding what you're doing with it. So you create a flow of energy, and the reason you create a flow of energy is because one is not the same frequency as the other, and it's constantly trying to balance. So in your room that you've painted, one wall is constantly trying to balance it with the other wall, and this wall is also trying to balance with that wall, and you're in the middle, and there's a flow created instantly that runs through your energy body. Okay, now you won't get an instant suddenly you've regrown the top of your finger because you're rebalancing, because there is a time delay between the energy body working and the physicality coming back into physical balance or physical form. Okay, so you've got to be a bit patient with it. Plus, the whole thing can be massively ramped up just by using your consciousness, because we don't really understand how strong our consciousness is. If you go to a Joe Dispenza presentation, you will, because I went to one in Basel in Switzerland, and there were 8,000 people in this stadium, And I rolled up and I thought, how's this going to work? Because what was happening were there was Austrian, Swiss, and German guys turning up in their souped up BMWs and Mercedes and all smart cars. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, every time I go to one of these energy events, it's usually all women and me or a few guys. This was 50-50 guys and guys and girls. And I thought, well, how on earth is he going to transform this? Anyway, we got into this stadium. He had the whole stadium working in their hearts from their consciousness within a day. It was absolutely incredible. And these guys, the totally Vorsprung durch technique, this works like this, blah, 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 blah. And they started to really connect with their hearts and then start working with the consciousness field that was there. I mean, he had people in tears by the end of 3 days. It was absolutely amazing. And I looked around and I thought, wow, this is fantastic, because these guys are just the same as me. I used to have my souped up Escort, my motorbike. I was just exactly the same. And so actually what happened was there was a big transformation of 8,000 people over a period of 3 days. And he goes around and repeats this around the world. But what it shows is that your conscious intent and your conscious focus is so powerful. What we have to do is understand, or first of all, believe that that is the case. And when we do that and we engage with it, then we can actually ramp up everything that we do, to the point that the pods are really, they're a companion on our journey to understanding our full power. So whilst you may start off with the pods, eventually, once you really get into yourself and you understand and you use your belief, then that is actually the thing that you can take with you and you won't need the pods. It's the worst business model ever in the
Yeah.
whole world.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because when a group of people, have their consciousness raised, then that bounces off onto other people around. So it's a really it's a very expansive process, all in all.
Yeah. And you call them pods, but it's actually three columns and you call it the Trinity, don't you? So I said to a lady, she's actually my neighbor, who is big into fighting against fluoride. And I just said to her, prepare to be underwhelmed, because they don't look that amazing, do they? It's like three white columns.
No, they were designed as speaker stands to look like speaker stands, so you could put them in your living room.
Ah,
That's what's behind it. Yeah, yeah.
that makes
We didn't
sense.
want a big technical, bells and whistles thing. We just want it so that people could just put them in their living room, and they're a nice thing to look at.
Yeah.
They are aesthetically nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so within these three columns, what's in the columns?
So basically, going back to what I was talking about, this GANs, or this TSE as we call it, transition state elements. In those columns are 5 different types of TSE, all of which talk to different aspects of your body. Okay, balancing it out. So what you're doing is you're creating 3 positions. 3 positions talk to each other. You sit in the middle. Your energy field, it talks to all of these 3 positions and the field in the middle to come back to a balanced position. You sit and you engage with your consciousness and you set your goal for whatever it is you want to do. And then you basically you surrender and you wait to see what happens. And I can tell you that if you do that and you sit and you use your intent to connect with your highest health blueprint, you'll get a download. I'm pretty sure most people would get a download. One of the people in Hawaii, she bought the pods and she rang me up about 3 days later, said, "Oh, what's going on here? I'll put these pods up." In her mind, I'm getting attacked from all sides, blah, 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 blah. So I said, look, everything that you experience in the pods is you. You're not, no one's diving in and chucking negative energy on you. It's there, it's all out there. But if you're choosing to be in a position where you're allowing that in, then that's what you're going to experience. Or if your belief system is you get attacked by negative energy, then that's what you're going to get. So because it's all about self-empowerment, what I did was I did a meditation with her. Well, in fact, it was Kat, actually. She did a meditation with her. And we said, look, set your intention to download your highest health blueprint. And we left her uh, for what was supposed to be 20 minutes. Anyway, 45 minutes later, she comes back. Wow, that was amazing. And she hasn't looked back because the this highest health blueprint thing actually came from Diana Cooper.
Yeah.
I hadn't really hooked onto that at all. And that was her very first experience of using the pods. And I thought, well, really? Okay, I'll try it. And so it's actually about 3 or 4 months after she'd had a session and gave a talk on it that I used that as a way of downloading my highest health blueprint. Shortly after that, I was shown that our ability to live to our highest health possible is encoded in our DNA. It's all in here, but we've buried it and we've got to remember how to extract it. So all that's happening when we sit in the pods is that we are recognizing, affirming that that is there, that we can get on with our life in a very healthy way, but we'd like it to happen, please, because so many people believe they can't.
Um, so you mentioned Diana Cooper. Is she on the testimonials page as well?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, I hadn't even noticed. So Diana Cooper, for those people who don't know who she is, she's very much into the angels, very spiritual, written a few books, got some cards, the oracle cards, all that sort of thing. And she was my introduction into spirituality, really. It was a book I borrowed from my now ex-husband, actually. And I don't know where he got it from, but anyway, so yeah, so Diana Cooper, I didn't realize that she'd been using the pods and she's done a talk on it and done a testimonial. So
yeah,
check
yeah.
it out, guys. I'll be checking it out myself, as well as the wonderful Pam Gregory, who most of you should probably know. She's world famous astrologer. And I'm hoping Pam's going to come on the podcast at some point as well. So I will let you carry on.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, I mean, the thing is, though, both Pam and Diana. I mean, Pam's got a set of pods as well. Uh, Diana actually used them herself for a year, then passed them on to her daughter.
Ah,
So she's there continuously using them. Um, the thing about all this is, um, behind all this, really, you've got to think that it's all about you, and it's all about you coming into harmony with the field and acknowledging the fact that in that field there is everything that you need. All you need to do is download it from that field, and you will get it. You will be given the help, but you have got to go through that process, which can. I mean, sometimes somebody came around to my place the other day. They're like that. 5 minutes. She's going, my God, yeah, I'm sitting here, and there's these people over there, those people over there. That's amazing. But other people could go for 6 months because it taps into your core beliefs about what you are, who you are, what you're doing here, etc. So if you've got a load of negative stuff going on, then it's going to take a bit of time to get over that and understand that you've got everything you need.
that's interesting. So I opened the doors, if you like, yesterday, for people to come and experience the pod. And so I had a couple of people come yesterday, and um, both guys I know. And the first one basically said, "Well, how often, would you recommend to do the pod?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really know." I said, "I suppose that's a question for Malcolm, so you can answer that in a minute." But I said, ultimately, it depends on what the purpose is. Do you have really ill health? Do you have pain in your body, cancers, anything like that? Or are you looking to just to simply balance yourself in a similar way that maybe people would go and have Reiki or perhaps acupuncture or whatever?
Yeah,
And I said, and it's to do with this, isn't it? It's to do with the blocks up here in terms of and I used the story that you told me about the guys out in America, and one of them has Alzheimer's, but he's not fully on board with spirituality and this sort of work. And so you'd said to me, perhaps in his soul contract, he doesn't want to get better. No matter how much he has these pod
yeah,
experiences, he
yeah.
might not want to get better. So there's so many variables, isn't there, in terms of
Huge.
how it impacts you, what experience you have.
Yeah, yeah. Now everybody is on a completely individual path. So you will, I mean, but and basically it's up to us to identify what that path is, and how we weave our way through it, because obviously, there's there's stuff that will put you off path, and then you can come back on it. I mean, I've yeah, I've had loads of experiences like that, but it is ultimately all about yourself. And the very first thing is, do you consider yourself worthy enough to be so powerful you can create your own reality, and everything about you will be fine? Are
That's,
you do you believe that you are worthy enough to do that?
that's interesting. That's an interesting
Because
question.
it's absolutely key. And I mean, I didn't really understand that actually. Yesterday we had a friend of ours come over, Rowan, who's a she
I
does it.
know, Rowan.
Yeah, she's amazing. So she just sat there and just said, repeated this to me about 10 times until I got it, in my head. And it's all about us being worthy. And that's where all the fear comes from and everything else, because we are super powerful, super powerful. But everybody else who wants to control you will have you believe that you can't do anything unless you go down the doctors, or you take this pill or that pill, or you sit under a tree, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Until you really understand that you are worthy, then you won't make loads of progress. You will definitely make progress. So it's not even about, have you got cancer or have you got an illness or whatever it is. It's not even about that. It's actually just about coming back to reforming your energy field to its best and highest potential. And in fact, I discussed this yesterday with Rowan. I said, look, what I've been doing is envisioning this energy field like an egg around me. And I said, but I haven't been putting the shell on it. It's just an egg, and it starts from here, and it's a solid, dense mass of light and love, if you like. But from that, it's initially like an egg shape, and then it radiates out from there. So wherever I'm walking around, if someone's coming in close proximity to me, then they'll pick up on that, and they could choose. They may not. They could choose to start to resonate with that frequency. And I'm not saying that because like I'm some big energy guru.
Mm.
I'm just saying it because that's what everybody can do. And the more people do it, the more it forms a cohesive field. And the stronger the cohesive field, then all the negative stuff can't survive in that. It just dies off and goes away. Well, it doesn't die off, actually, that's not true. It still remains, but it's pushed, if you like, further away from you. It doesn't have space to be in that positive field. So it's a completely empowering tool. And
Yeah.
as our and all the other stuff that we sell is just little tools to help you on the way, basically.
Yeah. So for those that are watching and listening, thinking, well, we all know somebody that's got bloody cancer, especially now, and Christ and heart problems and Christ knows what else. So, do you have any stories that you could share of somebody with, quite a bad illness that has attributed the pod to their healing?
Yeah. Okay. So no, I mean I think we've got about 200 testimonials on film of
Yeah,
people. The point about each one of those is they are all completely individual.
yeah,
Nobody with a repeat story, but lots of people on there who have had uh, problems ranging from, I think I had somebody with a club foot, or what was it, a club? Yeah, I think it was a club foot. We've had when we first started, we had lots of people with Parkinson's, and one particular lady who had been practicing Reiki, she did amazingly well. She went from being literally stuck in an armchair, she could hardly get out, and she was walking around. Well, she wasn't walking, she was staggering around her home with a walker. Then we gave her our first version of our pods, which she used for 3 months. By the end of 3 months, she was skipping up the road going shopping.
wow,
Yeah, no, it was wow. But the point about it is, but there were other people in her group who didn't do that. The difference was that she had already accepted that she was, well, mainly accepted that she was energy, and that she could also work on herself with this Reiki that she tuned herself into. So she had kind of a double bubble effect. She was working in an environment that was constantly balancing her. She was also engaging with this
Yeah.
and knowing that she can work with the Reiki frequencies as well. So she was consciously on her way to getting better already. The other people that she was with, they were really stuck in it. They were really stuck. Oh, I can't see how I can get out of this, because how are those pieces of plastic over there going to help me get better?
Yeah.
Okay, so nothing happened. And some other people, they were kind of somewhere in between. And at the moment, we're working with a lot of different people. I can't divulge their names and stuff, but there are people working with Alzheimer's, with dementia, and stuff. But but every day, I mean, I get up, I come down, sit in my pods, and every day I say, okay, what I want to download the latest version of my highest health
Oh,
blueprint.
so you say the latest version. I was wondering whether you said that every day.
You don't have to say the latest version. You just want to rebalance. But I
Yeah.
just, because I'm a bloke, that's what you do, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, it's a stage by stage process, okay? Because I mean, when I started all this, I couldn't feel energy at all. It took me about 3 years, because I needed to detox from the beer, from the curries, and all the rest of the rubbish that I've been doing, to get back to a point where my system became sensitive enough to start picking up on the frequencies around me. Um, and then with the healing work that I was doing, which was Tibetan pulsing, this was the most fantastic healing modality I've ever come across, actually. That is a method of releasing stuck energy in your particular circuits, and each circuit relates to a lot of your experience during your life. So that was actually the way I dealt with the death of my wife. It took me a couple of years, but that was one of the ways of dealing with it. And at the end of that, then I was able to engage with this plasma science. And what we were doing in Ibiza, we actually we made our TSC, which is in this vial here. Then we put it into a bottle with some distilled water, and then we sprayed that distilled water onto it was a pop-up mosquito net. Okay, now what that did was, as the water goes through the tiny crosses of the mosquito net, the cross acts as an accelerant. So you spray onto the mosquito net and onto the base, then you get inside the mosquito net, zip it up, and lie there for 20 minutes. Right, then you're in a discrete environment of that particular frequency. So first time I did it, I made one of these and I hung it from a tree, got in, and I came out. I was out for 4 hours because my body was having a massive readjustment to the new frequency. After 4 hours, I felt absolutely fantastic. So
When you
peaceful. And
say you were out for 4 hours, you mean you
I
were
was
in it,
sleeping. I was
you
sleeping. Oh no,
sleeping,
I
came out and you slept.
came out, then I had to go to bed for 4 hours,
Right.
because I was just integrating. Yeah. So that's what's happening when you come into contact with this. I'm not saying that you'll be out for 4 hours. It happened to me because I was going, I was in Ibiza, nightclubs, music, beer. So, all of that stuff, I had to detox massively quickly, or rebalance massively quickly, which is why it took so long. But if you do it step by step by step by step every day, then you'll do it easily. So to answer your first question about how long should you be in the pods,
Mm.
I mean, to start off with, 20 minutes a day is absolutely fine, because as you sit in them, you hone your intention and your consciousness to the environment that you're in, and you can elongate that time frame. You can miss out a day, then go longer, miss out another day, go longer. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you've gone away from your home, you've gone on holiday, and you're thinking, oh, God, I wish I bought my pods because I feel so crap. But actually, that's the point where you want to lie there and you want to use your intention to bring in the field that those pods create to you wherever you are. You can't do it if you had alcohol, by the way, or any other, drugs of any sort. You can just set that intention. You will feel that field come in. You have to, because it's there all the time, and you're
Um,
part.
And when you say you can't do it if you've had alcohol, do you mean alcohol within the last couple of hours, or do you mean alcohol in total?
No, I mean, really, yeah, I mean, it's much, you get a very enhanced effects if you don't drink at all. But, I'm a bloke. I like a beer now and then. So, I mean, I could have a beer one day and use the pods the next day.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a beer and then use the pods. I mean, there's no point because the
No,
alcohol
no, I didn't
is
mean,
designed
yeah,
to make you unconscious.
yeah, yeah. So as
So,
long as as long as you're alcohol free for that day is what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's for best effects. Yeah.
Okay. Um,
And also um, no plant medicine. You don't need it. That's the point. Plant medicine is just another way of getting into aspects of this field. If you're going to come into your power, you want to be yourself accessing the field in a very conscious way. You don't want to be out of it at all. You want to be absolutely aware of what's happening because it's so important because you're getting so much information downloaded and being aware of what's going on. If you're all, I mean, I've done ayahuasca,
yeah.
I, I mean, that was actually one of the things that allowed me to see a room made of energy, which was I was in Peru and I was with a shaman, did it the whole thing, and it was amazing. But I wouldn't repeat it because I've got a very sensitive system now, and it took me about 2 weeks to get over it.
Oh
But
wow.
it showed me exactly what's going on, in the energetic field. So you don't need all that. You need to really, sorry, I have to stop saying that word need. I suggest it would be a good idea if you actually just are free of as much influence as possible, and just build up your practice a little by little daily, and you'll find and ask for this highest blueprint to come in because it's buried in our DNA. We just have to bring it up. It's waiting there for you, and then you'll find that you'll get the downloads.
And for people that don't have their own pods and obviously are going to visit somebody like me to have some sessions,
Yeah.
what would you suggest? So let's take my guy yesterday, for example. He hasn't particularly got any bad health problems, likes to go and experience Reiki however often he goes. And he said, how often do you recommend? And I said, I don't know, I'll ask Malcolm. So what would you say?
Well, I would say the thing is you don't, even if you haven't got any perceived health problems, if you're on a path of growing your consciousness, expanding your consciousness, it's still worth doing stuff regularly
Mm,
because, the consciousness field is just a resonance chamber. It will throw back at you what you put out. If you set the intention to grow your consciousness, this will reflect back to you how you can do that in the best possible way for you. Okay. If you're if you're just bumbling along going, oh yeah, I'll look at the news today, I'll look at that, and I'll do a bit of work on my consciousness, you're not really going to make a lot of progress because the consciousness field will throw back at you what you're putting out. You only get back what you put out. And if you're not really pointed at growing your consciousness, then you're only going to get half of what you need. so so really 20 minutes a day, regardless of what your health situation is, just to literally sample it for your consciousness, and then set the intention. If you're serious about it, set your intention to grow and expand on that, and then you can make the sessions longer. But if you're a practitioner like your Reiki practitioner, you can also work with them with Reiki to enhance the whole process because it's not an exclusive technology because it comes from everything. And so anything that you put or bring as an intention into that field will get enhanced, especially if it's something like Reiki, because you're actually raising the frequency for that person.
Yeah.
And I mean, most of the hosts that we have on our website, they are just, they're therapists who have got the pods and they carry on with their own therapy and offer sessions. They offer a free session of 20 minutes in the pods, but people go along and they have their experience with that particular therapist. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that they do. I haven't been able to catch up with everybody because there's quite a few now. I think there's about 60 or 70 people. But there's everything from, I mean, if you go on the website, there's a one person, Sarah Darg, on there who reports on how she completely lost all time when she was just working with the therapist. So lots and lots of different things happen. It's not, and I think if you go on the testimonials page at the bottom, you'll see there's two snippets of compilations of people who've experienced things. If you just look at those, you'll see everybody's had a completely different experience.
Mm. So just for clarity then, I mean, my sort of, because when we first spoke, you said, really, the pod does everything. You don't need the Reiki, you don't need this, you don't need that, because you can just sit and be quiet or meditate in that pod and set your intentions and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm quite happy with that, unless some people just specifically want Reiki. And obviously, I absolutely will use the pod around the Reiki as well. But for somebody that's like, say, this guy that came yesterday and he said, well, how often should I come? But you just said 20 minutes every day, but that's not practical for people, is it, to come and visit and do 20 minutes a day? So would an hour a week work?
Yeah, yeah, that would work. But what I would say is that if they're gonna space it out that much, then they should really come to an understanding that they can connect with that field, whether they're with you or whether they go home.
Mm,
It will definitely be stronger when they're with you. Um, but as time goes on, they can learn to bring in the field themselves and then reproduce it wherever they go.
okay.
That's a good way for, because I mean I appreciate that, 20 you get a 20-minute free session,
Yeah.
but then obviously they've got to pay for the sessions after that because you're not doing it for free. So which is fine because there should be an exchange of energy
Hmm.
all the time. Um, so yeah, I appreciate people can't go every day or every week. So yeah, an hour plus setting the intention to fully come into their awareness, fully come into their connection with the field, and start working with the field. So what they can do is a bit of a so they can buy one of these. I know you can't, yeah, which is the quantum loop, which is on our website. They are designed as the entry level for everybody. So they're £77, and they contain tiniest pieces of copper, which have all been treated with the TSE that we make. Okay, layers and layers and layers and layers of it. When you put that in a circle, that loop in a circle, each of those pieces of copper has been placed at a certain distance. That's where I brought, sorry, not me, actually, Kat, it was Kat's idea. She brought that in from our biogeometry training. Those pieces then talk to each other across the circle. Then you stand in the middle, and what's actually happening is your energy field is being rebalanced by those pieces. And then you can use that every day, morning and evening, for your meditation. And that brings you to higher and higher levels of how you're working. And then if you supplement that then with a once a week in the pod, that would be great. Now, what you can also do is buy a little vial of the TSC. Yeah. Okay, put it in the water. And when you spray that into your field, what's actually going to happen is that's going to introduce another area where balancing is trying to take place. So you've got stuff coming up from the loop, and you've got balancing from the field of the spray, exactly like I described earlier for the cocoon. And then if you've painted your walls, one wall with one wall with the other, and you've got that going on as well, you are in a pretty good place to be in a healing environment just normally during the day.
Mm.
Okay. So then your field is being rebalanced all the time. And then when you come, if you do that and then come to you for a pod session, you're really then going to start drilling down into understanding how all this stuff comes together.
Yeah.
So it's all about keeping this movement. And I mean that is a thing, whether or not you're working in the energetic or the physical. If you talk to an expert on fascia, they'll tell you that fascia is what's below the skin. Majority of it is water. If you come to a standstill and your arm moving around, what you're actually doing is putting stagnant water in your body. So you've got to keep that moving. You keep your fascia moving, and in turn, that feeds information to your muscles, your skin, and at a physical level, that keeps you working and it keeps the repair going. So it's all the same stuff. It's just being expressed physically and energetically and somewhere in between.
I hadn't really appreciated, I don't think, the the effect. You think about the frequency healing, and you think about healing of the mind, the body, anything like that, the anxiety, all these sorts of things. I hadn't really fully appreciated the impact it's going to have in terms of opening up the access to your higher consciousness in the way that you've been describing here. And so I'm glad that we're having this conversation now on the second day of me having the pods open, because I have got
Yeah.
some people coming later, to be able to talk more into that. I mean, it's not going to suit everybody. Some people just want to have some healing, in terms of whatever's going on physically or whatever. But, there was a guy that came yesterday, and if I'd have got that into my head a bit more, he would have loved that conversation. He's been following actually Mark Atwood,
Yeah,
who,
well, Mark has got a set of our pods
that's
in.
right, yeah. So he already knew about the pod.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, the thing is, what you're describing is the process I had to go through when I started learning about this stuff. It took me 6 months to get my head around that before I could even make this stuff. That's the point, because it's a complete upside down way of thinking.
Mm,
But it's the most important thing we can do, really, because as soon as you start perceiving your reality in terms of energy rather than physicality, then you start making progress. Because I mean, I'll give you an example. There is my namesake, a guy called Malcolm Bendall. He lives in Kent. Right? He's an Australian engineer. He's invented something called a vortex generator. Okay, he understood that if you change the frequency within the ether, within the energy field, you actually then change the material that appears in your reality. Okay, so the video, and because of that, he then married that with a Vajra, which is an old Indian. I think what they called it was actually a weapon, but basically it's two bulbs with a join in the middle, and what he's doing is making use of a vortex energy to transmute the frequency of one type of material to another. And what he's ended up with is a retrofitting generator which completely removes all toxins from any engine. Okay, because what he's doing is changing the frequency of the toxins using the energy of the vortex and spitting out water and air. Regardless, okay, so I mean the whole thing's been actually tested by an official testing centre in England. That generator, of course, has many, many, many uses, because from that you can actually get energy. But that is now with a development company, and I think it's in Thailand actually. But the whole thing's being backed by an American company. It's got millions behind it, but you won't see that in the news. But you can look it up on YouTube and learn all about it. And in fact, he's to protect himself, he's given out the blueprints for it, so you can make one in your garage.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's the same principle. It's exactly the same principle. He understands that once everything is contained here, and if you understand that you can transmute that into something else by just the frequent change of the frequency, then you can have anything you like. So what I was going to come on to say was that if you could put up at the bottom of this video the link to the video of the experiment that was done in Beijing only a few weeks ago, which actually shows how the stuff here in these, this is a bit of a weird.
Oh no, it's because of the background. It's a pain,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. If you put those into basically it's going back to Kesh, who's the inventor of this stuff. If you put a certain mixture, one in one spinning ball and another in another spinning ball, that creates a what he calls a reactor. Okay, and if you then arrange those in a star formation, one in the middle, four either side, what actually happens is the field around those precipitates matter on a piece of white paper all around those reactors. So that matter has come from nowhere other than the space around those reactors. Now, that's okay. So that is just what we all talk about as, oh, our reality is a frequency. And everything that we experience is a frequency slowed down and it comes into being. That's the basic explanation of quantum physics. Okay. But the key thing is that when he went up and picked up some of that matter, it turned to gold. And everybody go, oh no, that's just that's just conjuring trick. But it's not, because we are an energy field. And what's actually happening is when he picks up those pieces, his energy field interacts with that matter state. So he's only doing exactly what Malcolm Bendal's been doing. He's just adding another frequency to that matter state, and that matter state is then turning into something else from what it was, and that something else happens to be gold. Obviously, he's worked it out so as to do it that way around, because we all understand, oh, gold, we like gold. So it's a real pull as far as attracting people's attention. But to
And
be honest, it's that experiment's 10 years old.
and
That's
it's real gold.
yeah, it's gold. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So then you say, well, hang on a minute.
Because we say gold comes from the rocks, the soil, whatever. You're
Yeah,
digging
yeah.
for gold, right?
No, but all the rocks and the rocks and the gold, any mineral comes from this interaction of magnetic and gravitational forces with different frequencies. Now, if you then start looking back at somebody like Walter Russell, okay, who was a visionary, visionary, he used to draw spiraling in, out pictures, because he says that's where our reality comes from. Okay, it's exactly the same thing. It's this magnetic and gravitational energy. And then he went on to draw, instead of being presented with a set of elements or the elemental table, so we are presented with, okay, here are all the elements, bang, 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 in this chart, all separated, all on their own frequency. Okay. But what Walter Russell said was, no, it's not like that at all. Basically, what you've got is a spiral that goes up. As you climb that spiral or come down that spiral, you're going through different frequencies. As the frequencies change, the material changes. So he was actually totally demonstrating the whole thing's connected, and actually it's just a part of changing the frequency that actually makes the material, the matter state, change. So you've got to get your head around that, okay? But then you'll realize that if you make something and then you come into being, you come into the proximity of that, there is a reaction. You're not operating yourself as an island. You are part of everything that is around you. Okay, so that's the key thing. And was it Terence Howard? I think Terence Howard presented this at, I think it was Oxford University about a year ago, something like that. Have a look on YouTube; it's on there. He understood this. I'm not saying that everything he says is completely right. I mean, I don't know whether or not it's right, but the point is, he perceived that it's not separate Everything isn't separate. Everything is joined, and everything can transmute from one thing to another, which is why Malcolm Bandel can build a generator that does it. And in fact, Malcolm Bandel also produced a whole chart, which was he showed how everything can interact on this massive pie chart, and just by moving around the pie chart, you can change from one material thing to another, one mineral thing to another. So it's huge. This whole thing is huge because
Yeah.
it's a complete rethink of how we are being taught, basically.
Okay. Cool. So I think, yeah, I think as we've been going over an hour, we'll think about bringing this particular conversation to a close.
Yeah,
Perhaps we'll have you on again in the future. So if people if you stoke their interest and they want to know more,
yeah.
where's the best place for them to go, Malcolm?
Okay, so what we did have a website that had a lot of background information, but people weren't looking at it, weren't getting it. So we've transferred a lot of those videos onto YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and look up Orynoco, Orynoco, then you'll get some of the most recent and some of the past. For example, on there are some of the workshops that we held, and that gives you a much more um, grounding understanding of where this whole plasma science is coming from. And then we've got the Orynoco shop, and on the Orynoco shop, there is just the basic products, which is the loop. And we've also got one of these, which is this is a kind of a satellite version of the pods. So, you know, when you get to work with the pods a bit more in depth, you can actually start to tune this up, and you can take this with you wherever you go. So we've got a number of chiropractors who have the pods at home, then they take this and they work with this in their clinic under their therapy tables, and that brings in the fields. So you can do that as well. And of course, we've got the lovely these pendants.
Yeah, I've been looking at those actually.
Yeah, so that piece of, I don't know if you can see that, but in the
Yeah.
middle of it is a piece of copper. That piece of copper is treated with layers of this TSC. The idea of that being that it just gently gives off a balancing field, and if you're wearing it around your neck, then obviously it's in an area where your thymus is, thyroid, etc. It's just keeping everything in balance, and this is the stuff that regulates your uh, you know, all the various minerals, etc. in your body. So really, you can go on the Orynoco shop. On there, you can buy stuff, but look at the testimonials, because there's loads on there. I've got loads more to put up. I just haven't had time to do it. And there are also there's a whole separate page on how to use this stuff. So you can download a whole paper on you know, how to use the water, how to use the pods, how to use the loops, etc. So it's actually got a lot of information embedded in it, even though it looks initially just like a sales page.
Yeah.
Plus the YouTube, and then we've got a few things on Instagram. But what we're doing is, because I've been working on the French stuff most of the year, I'm now coming back to getting more to grips more with trying to get more of this information out for people to look at and you know, see if they like it and understand it, basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And
do write in, use the website contact. If you've got any questions, just write in and we'll get back to you.
brilliant. Okay, cool. So everyone knows where to go now, and I'll obviously put it in the description below as well. Any final parting words, Malcolm? Perhaps something we haven't covered yet, or anything you feel cool to share before we close today?
Yeah, I mean, I think this point about worthiness is so important. Um, I hadn't actually appreciated how important it was until actually yesterday, believe it or not. Because when you consider whether or not you are worthy enough to be, if you like, responsible for your own environment, for your own healing, for your own reality, when you fully take that on board, then you know that you have the capacity to go forward, investigate all this stuff, and that your capacity is boundless. That's the point. most people are walking around these days thinking they can't do it, which is why they don't do it. But actually, the opposite is the case. You've got massive capacity. You've got massive electrical capacity, power capacity, the capacity to connect with information, all of it. So when you wake up every morning, say to yourself, "Am I worthy?" And if the answer is no, then you know you've got a few things to work on. But if the answer is yes, then you know you've got the gates have opened and off you go.
Yeah. Self-worth is and self-love is a massive issue for
Yeah,
most people, me included. It's something that when I was focusing on my coaching, I talked a lot about because you know I know it affects everybody, but it seemed to me back then that it affects women more. Women tend to have a worth issue way more than men do. Men tend to be more bravado, more confident, whether it's real or fake, whatever. But it affects everybody in
yeah,
different ways. And yeah, that worthiness, as soon as you said it earlier, I was like, wow, oh yeah, here we go again. There's that bloody self-worth.
yeah. No, well, I mean, it was Rowan who brought it up, and she's absolutely spot on.
Yeah,
That was brilliant.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Okay, well, Malcolm, thank you so much. I know you're a very busy man, and I appreciate your time today. And I've loved this conversation. I hope the viewers and listeners feel the same. At the end of the day, we are all, especially the people that watch this channel, they're fighting the good fight, some of them, or they're learning about, all the corruption, and they're learning about this, and they're just enraged by this, that, and the other. And of course, all of these things and what's happening, the craziness in the world is having a massive impact. And that's why at the beginning of this, I was saying, please don't, please watch this. It might not be the dopamine hit that you're looking for. However, if we focus more, and I should have said this at the beginning, if we focus more on solutions, if we focus more on the love and light, and we focus more on us as a being, that to be the best version and to show up in the way that we want, so we can have that blissful life.
mm,
It isn't out of reach. And I think about this, the law of attraction, when The Secret came out, which I think was about 10, 15 years ago.
mm,
Everyone was sort of sat there meditating, expecting a bag of gold to drop in their lap because of the way it had been explained, or what we read and the videos that we watched, and then got frustrated because all of a sudden I haven't got $1 million in my bank. Why? I'm doing all this law of attraction stuff, and I think it was probably purposely taught a little bit incorrectly to keep us dumbed down and to keep us thinking that we've got this empowerment, and actually no, we haven't, because it still doesn't work and I'm still broke, and all of that sort of stuff. So what you've explained in terms of the power that the pod can give you, the power's in us anyway.
mm,
But it's really difficult to access because of all the variables, because of the negative people in our life, because of the limiting beliefs, because of
yeah,
how we've been programmed from the time we came out of the womb, let's be honest.
mm,
And this will allow you to connect more to that part of us that we're all craving it. I especially, and to yeah, to go and be a light in the world without feeling like that's being big-headed or whatever. You go in
mm,
and you're doing good in the world, because once you do that, then it's like the ripple effect, isn't it? It's the pay it forward. More and more people want to do it. More and more people go off and do good things, and then before you know it,
yeah.
60% of the world is in a completely different place.
Totally, totally. No, no. I mean, it's a very personal journey, and your personal transformation is entirely in your hands because the field of consciousness is a feedback loop. You're just going to get back what you put out. So if you believe that you're struggling against something, the consciousness field will just go, oh, you want to struggle, do you? Okay, let's make it really difficult for you then. So you want to. It's a question of letting go. That's what it is,
Mm.
basically. Let go of all that stuff, and you'll find that then you can start to come in the flow. And when you come in the flow, then stuff will come back to you to reflect, what your expectations are.
Yeah.
So
Okay, perfect. And what I forgot to say was I have the pod in my lodge, and I'm based in Coventry. So if anybody watching wants to come and experience it and you live locally, please reach out. But on the website, on the orinocoshop.com, is it com or co.uk?
No, no, it's orynocoshop.com.
Com.
Yeah,
There's also a list of hosts and practitioners
yeah,
on there all around the country.
yeah,
So you can find somebody, if you're not based in the Midlands, you can find somebody close to you.
yeah.
So,
There's
thank,
also people in other countries as well.
and in other countries, yeah,
We're gradually pushing out the boundaries.
absolutely. Well, thank you again, Malcolm. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed.
You're
Okay,
welcome. Thank you.
all right.